And here's the thing, he had offers double what we offered him, but they couldn't close on it. And so when his back was getting against the wall, he's like, "Look, man, like if you can make this happen for me, this is what it is." And we weren't trying to take advantage of the situation. The
No.
house was trashed.
Yeah, I can only imagine. All right, well, that's good. That didn't. So he's happy. He got some liquidity for his asset. His
Yep.
father, who in '97 disowned everybody else, got the funds to the right kid.
Yep.
Um, and now you got an eyesore that you get to either sell to somebody else or you get to fix up. So even the neighborhood wins. Folks, I've got a treat for you today. I have a returning guest. I have a contributor to the course and an amazing human being, the one and only Ryan Nickel. Ryan, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, absolutely. We just had to do this morning. I've been obviously we're friends. I follow you on Facebook and other platforms, and it really seems like we have a bifurcated economy, a bifurcated consumer. What do I mean by that? Some people are doing really, really well, right? If you are an
Yeah.
employee at Nvidia or a tech company and you're getting stock, you're buying homes in San Jose, California for 400 grand over list price
Over
because you
asking, that's
can.
right. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's
crazy.
nuts. But then there are some people that are struggling. And one of the things that I know that you really care about is trying to find creative ways to help people that are in tough situations. Because sometimes people need to sell and they can't do it through the traditional way. The property's
Right.
not right, the debt's not right. There could be lots of reasons. And I know you and Bootstrap real estate as Bootstrap real estate investor try to find them and try to help. And you told me the other day you've got 3 wild stories. So what is story number one?
Um, story one, number one is someone who we haven't helped yet. I'm pretty confident that we will. But this is so bizarre. This is so crazy. So this house is going into foreclosure. We go, we knock on their door. I've written several books, and this is one of them. It's how to defend yourself when going through foreclosure. And so when I knock on their door, I'm not there to buy their house. I'm there to help. And so I'm a resource. And so she invites us in. She tells us her story. She was scammed on. So she's a disabled war vet, and she makes $8,000 a month between her and her husband's income. She's 65, he's 1,500. And so 8 grand a month coming in, and we're like, how are you $75,000 behind on your mortgage? Because her mortgage payment's only 2 grand. Come to find out, um, someone from Facebook reached out to her and said, "Hey, I got this great opportunity for you. I'm going to help you make lots of money. If you can invest $8,000 a month with us, we're going to turn that into 64,000 in 2 months for you." And sure enough, they built this elaborate website, all these things. And so she had been dumping money. She thinks she's a multimillionaire. And so she was just like, "Oh, I'm just waiting for my house to go to foreclosure, and then I'm just going to buy it cash at a discount. I'm going to just get a short sale for my own house." And I'm like, "It's not going to happen that way. I'm sorry." So
Yeah.
anyway, long story short, we go in there and her money's gone. It just evaporated. She's got scammed. And the bank is willing to work with her to bring it $25,000 current. She's just like, "I can't bring $25,000. I'm broke. All I get is 8,000 a month." And so we're walking around this house, and there is, Mike, I kid you not, a custom, beautiful 1967 Ford Mustang convertible soft top. Beautiful. Oh, she's like, "Oh, that's my husband's car. We would never sell that. No, we don't need the money that bad. We'd rather lose our house and be homeless than sell my husband's car that he got for $2,000 from a friend 5 or 6 years ago." So crazy stories. I'm just like, sometimes individuals that you run across, like their head is just so far in the sand that they're just like, "I'd rather just lose everything than use the one asset that I have to get me back on track."
Yeah. Well, I want to be clear on something. This was not a Facebook employee. When we say someone on Facebook, it wasn't a Facebook employee. This
Correct.
was
Yeah.
some
Some
scammer using
scammer.
the platform. Okay. All
Yep.
right.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right. Yeah. It was some Bitcoin miner.
Uh,
We're going to mine Bitcoin for you. We're going to, put all this money available for you. And yeah, it's crazy. But like, that's just like the crazy story. So this is like, good, hardworking Americans. In this case, she was, she's served our country, was injured, and, receives a pension and all this stuff. But now she's just like, she's facing losing her house because she got scammed by somebody. And it's an unfortunate situation. It really is.
so okay, so you're there, you're helping her, you give her, I'm sure you gave her your book. Um,
Yeah.
how do you where do you think this goes? Because this could go a couple of ways.
Yeah.
Right.
So The situation with her, this is what we offered her. She has no equity, by the way. She's stripped it all out in between refinancing over the years and the current situation where she's in. We actually, because she is, I mean, we have a soft spot for vets,
Mhm.
and so this is something that we actually offered to do for her. Was we would actually purchase the property, she would rent it back from us for 2 years at exactly what her mortgage is currently right now, and then she would just
Okay.
refinance. If at the end of 2 years she couldn't refinance, then of course we look at other options for her. But this was keeping her in her house, and she's like, "Oh my God, I would never give you my house. I would
Mm.
rather lose it."
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Um, okay, so you get creative. You try to give her some breathing room for a couple of years.
yeah.
She does have an asset, the car. She's not willing to sell that. Do you think she's gotten to the point where she just she needs to turn the page and maybe foreclosure is the right answer for her? Or
Well, here's the thing. So we gave her many options. One of the options was California has this relief fund, and it pays out. It's however, because she's behind on a second, she doesn't qualify.
mm,
So that was out of the table, off the table. So bankruptcy was an option, and
okay.
the bankruptcy trustee said, "Hey, you know what? Yeah, we'll just you have a couple of credit card debts. We'll go ahead and we'll lump everything together. However, you're going to be paying $8,000 a month to the trustee for 5 years, and then everything will be taken care of." Well, and she's already been paying that to the scammer. She's like, "Oh, I can't afford that. $8,000 a month is too much," and so she turned
Uh,
down the bankruptcy option. So
all right.
and so where she's at right now, she got an extension on the foreclosure. So we're just waiting this one out. I'm pretty confident that um, when it comes time for the next trustee sale, that we'll be getting a phone call again, like we did last time, because it was like 4 or 5 days before, and we said, "Hey,
Mhm.
go ahead and these are the options," and she got to postpone. So um, I'm pretty confident that she's going to come back to us and say, "Hey, we
Yeah,
love it
I'm
here.
ready.
We grew up in
Yeah.
this house. Let us just rent it from you for 2 years, and then we'll go ahead and refinance and take it back." But here's a problem that we run into, Mike, is she's so stuck on. She's like, "But in 2020, I got a 2% interest rate, and if I have to refinance in 2 years, Ryan, I might be at 8 or 9%, and I can't do that. I can't lose my 2%." And so it's this mental gymnastics of like holding on to an emotional number that means nothing, rather than like looking at the facts of like, "Hey, you can have your house here and still live here. These are just compromises you have to make."
Well, again, I go back to this situation, right? Because you leave and she and her husband are talking.
Yeah,
The conversation goes one of two ways, in my opinion. One is, honey, we want to stay here. We've got to do whatever we can to stay here, which it doesn't sound like that's happening. The other one is, you know what? It was a good run. We're kind of done here. Let's go rent somewhere else. At which point she loses the 2% interest anyway, which is kind of
correct.
interesting. But it doesn't to me. It kind of feels like she doesn't have fight left, but that could change in a moment, right? She gets another court date to sell, and suddenly she's fighting
Right.
again. But it doesn't feel
So
like she's fighting right now.
well, no, because she's beaten down. So here's really what
Yeah.
happens behind the scenes. So husband completely blames her, trashes her in front of us, and says that she's, um, for lack of a better term, she's just mismanages her money. She's ignorant when it comes to finances.
Mhm.
Um, Here's the thing: he crossed over here to the United States illegally. She got him his immigration status because she's a vet. He now can, when she passes, has this pension. They sleep in separate rooms,
Mm.
and all the money that goes into the account he takes out because he doesn't trust her, and he spends it on his he's a lawn care business, so he takes all the money. So they recently had 12,000 saved up. He needed new lawnmowers, so he went out and bought all brand new lawn
No, of
equipment.
course.
Yeah, of course. So the situation for her, unfortunately, is that he blames her for everything, and she's taking full responsibility. She's like, "I know it's my fault, and so I need to live with my consequences. This is what happened," and it's just like, okay.
Yeah, that's a wild story. I mean, you and I've been doing this a long time. I saw similar stories in 2006, 7, 8. And yeah, people can take ownership. They get beaten down. They feel like the pain is deserved when they can release it. They can let it
Mhm.
go. Um, that's a horrible situation, starting with a scammer preying on, vets and all of that. Well, if
Yeah,
that's story number one, I'm
that's
not sure I want
that's
to
the most
hear.
mild story that we have.
I'm not sure I want to hear number two, but go ahead.
All right, number two. Um, this is actually somebody that we helped. The other ones are good stories here.
Okay, good.
So, in California here, if you don't pay your taxes for 5 years, the government can come in and they can do a forced sale and they can take your house for, delinquent taxes.
Yep.
So same situation, it's foreclosure. I walk up with my book. Um, Go and meet this gentleman. He inherited a property from his father. So
Mhm.
here's where it gets really, 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 really crazy. So
Okay.
he he inherited a property from his dad, and he lived there for about 8 or 9 years, and then he just got into trouble with drugs, fell into the wrong crowd, goes to prison, comes
Okay.
back from prison. His house is destroyed, had been squatted in, just everything is just a mess.
Hmm.
So he's been out for 22 months now. He's cleaned his life up. He's met a woman. They're going to AA meetings. They're just doing everything they need to, and the taxes are behind. And so he he doesn't know what he's going to do. He's behind about 20 grand in taxes, and we go and knock on his door, and he's like, "No, I think I got this. The California Relief Fund is going to help me out here." So
Okay.
totally cool. I mean, I'd rather have that be the case so he can stay in the house and he moves forward. So, come to find out, he applied a little bit too late for that, so he missed the cutoff date. Because I guess the way that that works is they have cycles where they pay,
Mm.
and he was on the wrong cycle, and tax auction was going to be the following week, and unfortunately, it doesn't going to
Yeah.
work.
Okay.
So he contacts us again. He's like, "Hey, man, I'm losing my house. I don't want to be homeless." He's like, "I'm struggling to live here. I'm struggling to do the right thing, to stay sober, put a roof over my my family's heads and all this stuff." And he's just like, "How can you help us out?" So we talked to them like, "Well, what do you want to do?" He's like, "Well, ultimately, I want to sell, but right now I can't. My back's against the wall. I need to just preserve this asset, but I want to sell and I can't." I'm like, "Well, how come you can't?" He's like, "Well, because the house is in a trust, but when I went to prison, people came and ransacked my house and I lost all my paperwork. I don't have the trust." And I'm like, "Well, that's not a problem. We can just, file an affidavit of lost trust and, go ahead and go that. Are there any siblings?" He's like, "Yeah, I have 8 siblings, but they were all disowned in the trust." And I'm like, okay. Were they really? Or is this going to be a
Yeah.
situation where you're going to have siblings all fighting for a share of the pie?
Yeah.
So, um, doing some detective work, some sleuthing, we find the attorney who did this. Here's the problem, though. This was done in 1997. That's when the trust was taken out. So we're
Mm.
talking, 27 years ago.
Yeah.
And so this trust was taken out in 27, or a long time ago, 1997. We end up finding the attorney who still has the records.
Oh, good. All right.
So we get the trust. However, this is where it becomes really, really complicated. We get the trust, and the trust, it actually disowns everybody. We're like, "Oh my
Okay.
god, the dad really did give it to this guy." So we go to buy the property. However, in order for him to receive the funds, it has to go into an account for the trust. Not a
Okay.
problem. We
Yeah.
go to the IRS and we're like, "I'm sorry, you cannot get an EIN number for anything over 25 years old."
Oh, shit.
So we're stuck. We're like, "Oh my god, this guy cannot sell his house or get the money for it."
Wow.
And so
Okay.
he's he's in the quandary here. We're like, "Well, we'll still buy it. We'll put the funds in escrow." They just can't cut you a check, or you just can't
Yeah.
cash it. So, um, and I'm walking around here, and here's kind of the sad thing. So this guy, he's been in and out of the system his whole life. He's tatted up from head to toe. I mean, they're all over his body. So we go to one of the banks and we roll in there, and he's there first. He's like, "I'm here for an appointment for a checking account." They're like, "No, you're not. We don't have you on our schedule."
Yeah.
And then I rolled in like 10 minutes late because I was running behind. I'm like, "I'm here for an account." I'm like, "Oh, we don't have any today." I'm like, "Actually, I do, and it's with this gentleman." I'm like, "Oh my god, for reals?" Like,
Yeah.
so, but we're sitting down there and they can't help us. So the solution was this: is like, you know what? We're just going to open up a personal account for this gentleman. He's going
Okay.
to have a personal account, and we'll just wire the funds directly to him outside of escrow, and just close it that way. And that's what we
Mm.
ended up doing. So we wired the funds. So it was basically funds were paid out of escrow. We got an affidavit for that, and when we closed, it was it was still insured and everything. But yeah, that was our creative workaround to help this guy out and
So
his
I just
family.
want to make sure I understand what you had to do creatively. So again, basically what you did is you still went through the escrow and title process so you can get title insurance, but
Correct.
you issued an affidavit saying funds will be wired or whatever outside of escrow.
Hmm.
Um, I'm guessing you still had to wire some money to escrow to pay for the fees, a couple of grand or something.
Cashier's check. Yeah,
Yeah.
cashier's
Oh,
check.
cashier's check. Okay. That makes sense to me. That's
Yeah.
that's creative. And again, clean title.
Yeah, we got the house free and clear. And here's the thing, he had offers double what we offered him, but they couldn't close on it. And so when his back was getting against the wall, he's like, "Look, man, like if you can make this happen for me, this is what it is." And we weren't trying to take advantage of the situation. The
No.
house was trashed. I mean,
Right.
he
Yeah.
gave him
25 years of
everything.
squatters. Yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can only imagine. All right, well, that's good. That didn't so he's happy. He got some liquidity for his asset. His
Yep.
father, who in 97 disowned everybody else, got the funds to the right kid.
Yep.
Um, and now you got an eyesore that you get to either sell to somebody else or you get to fix up. So even the neighborhood wins.
Yeah, neighborhood. Well, this is so. Here's the crazy thing too. We're talking to him. He's like, you guys. He's like, you're God sent. You're like my guardian angel. I want to help everyone else in this situation. Maybe you can help my neighbor. And this is the this is kind of sad. So same thing happened to the neighbor 2 years ago. A guy comes knocking on our door and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to give you. I'm just going to pay just the taxes because you're going to lose it anyway." So he pays the house for I think it was $22,000.
Okay.
Says you can live here for as long as you want, but I'm gonna put a renter in here. You have to move out of your master bedroom and go into a smaller room because I need a renter in here because I'm putting this money here. She
Okay.
agrees to it, so she gets no compensation for the house other than a room. She's
Mhm.
having issues with the landlord. He's given her an eviction notice, and she's getting out of her house. And so my neighbor's like, maybe you can help her. So we're looking at this. We're like, where's the purchase and sales contract, and where is the compensation for her? Because this is almost like unconscionable to
Mhm.
basically take someone's
Yeah.
house. So anyway, that's the kind of stuff that happens in these tax sales or even in foreclosures when people's like, their backs are against the wall here.
Yeah. There's a lot of slimy, dishonest sharks, charlatans. Lots of bad words I don't want to say, so the video still goes out. There are a lot of horrible people
There
out
are.
there. Yeah.
Fortunately, this woman is she's 77 years old. We don't know what we could do. We're like, hey, you know what? If you can get this overruled or overturned, you may have an elder abuse account case. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. Here's someone you can
Mm.
talk to. She's in the process right now, and it looks like this might be overturned.
Oh, there you go.
And the reason for it was because she personally did not receive any compensation for the house.
Yeah, there was, what do they call that? I don't know. Basically, yeah, you got to have some kind of just compensation or fair compensation or something like
Yeah.
that.
And so
Yeah.
it's considered an unconscionable act, is what it is.
There you go. Unconscionable act. Oh, I like it. All right.
Yeah.
So story number 2 ends happily. Creative option, moving money outside of escrow, still getting clean title. I like that. Maybe even helping the nice lady next door. Where does story number 3 go?
Another foreclosure.
Of course.
All right. I mean, because here's the thing, right? These you can drive around all day long and you can find these eyesores in the neighborhood. You can knock on their door and there's no motivation to sell. They're like, "Oh, my house has looked like this for 20 years. Why would I
Yeah,
change it today?"
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the bad guy is the big bag bank or the county that's going to come take their house, and there's a timeline. So they're forced to move within that time frame, and so these are motivated sellers, if you will.
Mhm.
So find a house, and it used to be a home that was for disabled adults,
Mm.
and when the owners passed away, the house kind of fell apart and it stopped being
Yeah.
that. So then it became a house for squatters and stuff like that. So vacant house, had been vacant for close to 15 years,
Oh my
but
gosh.
lawn paid for, you know, taken care of, and the house is just it's just vacant inside, but there's lights on, so it looks like you wouldn't know if you drove by it. That's the thing.
Okay.
So it gets on the foreclosure record. We're like, oh, we find it. We're like, oh, go knock on the door. Nobody's there. Try to
Mm.
find the gentleman. We go to the taxes where the taxes are being mailed to. Find another vacant house
Hmm.
in another very nice affluent neighborhood. We're like, same situation. Yard's manicured, house looks well taken care of. So start poking around trying to find out like who owns these houses that are sitting vacant in town here. Come
Yeah.
to find out, a guy lives way down south. They were his he grew up in the very nice house, and then the disabled home was something that his mom and dad had a heart for. It was one of
Uh,
their legacies.
Projects. Yep.
Yeah, the
Yep.
project. So he's the only child. He's 72 years old.
Mm,
and he has real severe emotion detachment disorder. And so he
okay.
cannot let go of things. Like the home
Mm,
where his mom and dad live is pristine. It's been that way for decades.
mm,
And mom's Cadillac is still in the car, like her 1982 Cadillac. It's just like it's in the they have a Model T Ford in the backyard. It's like all these old things. It's crazy. I kid you not. So he just cannot let go of things. However, life happened to him where he got sick, his wife left him, finances became tight, he's not able to keep up on the taxes, and of course, this one house had a small mortgage on it, only like 42,000, hadn't been paid
wow.
off yet. So he can't go through probate though. He's just like, I can't do this, Ryan. This is just too hard for me. And he's very comfortable because the neighbor is like taking care of the house for him. Come to find out, I go over there and I start cleaning up the house, like kicking people out because there's squatters that are there. So I kick them
Right.
all out, and I keep seeing the same people like reoccurring show up. I'm like, what's going on here? And then the neighbor guy comes over and he's like, oh my God, I can't believe these people keep coming back into the house. So one night I get this itch, this hunger, like this desire to like just to go over there and just see who's there in the middle of the night. Crazy
Mm.
idea. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody,
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
but I do anyway. I'm like, I'm just gonna go over there and see who's in this house late at night because I'm kicking them out early in the morning. So I'm like, let's just go at midnight and see who's there. So I go over, and I had just kicked out a woman earlier in the day around 4 p.m. And when I kick them out, they disappear, and I can't find out where they're going. I'm trying to like
Mm,
walk down the street and see like where these people are going, but as soon as they walk out the door, they're gone. They like just
mm,
vanish. And I'm like, these people are like ghosts.
mm,
So I go over there. House is vacant. I'm like, oh, to my surprise. As I'm walking, by the way, this is a 2,600 square foot home. It's 5 bedrooms, 3 baths. As I'm walking back down the hall, I hear the toilet flush. And I'm like, oh my God, someone's actually in here.
yeah.
So I quickly book it down the hall because I don't know who it is. And
Right.
my
Yeah.
heart's pounding, and the door opens, and I turn around, and this dog walks out with this woman who has this Cruella de Vil wig on, and she has these fishnet stockings. And I'm just like, oh my, it's like a Halloween costume.
Wow. All
And I
right.
ask her, I'm like, hey, what are you doing in this house here? And she tells me, she's like, oh, the next door neighbor let me come in and I use the bathroom when I live here. Or I'm like, when I visit him, I'm like, why don't you use his bathroom? Come to find out, she's like, don't you know the neighbor next door lives behind the house in his mom's shed? He doesn't have a bathroom. And he's been letting all of us come over here and use the restroom and sleep whenever we want to. So this guy who's quote unquote taking care of the house for the guy down south, unbeknownst to him, is really the guy that's causing all the problems with the squatters.
Right. Of course.
And so
Yeah.
when this dawned on me, I brought this to his attention. He's just like, "Oh my God!" He's like, "I can't believe this. The guy I was just trusting to do all of these things for me is screwing me over." And so he our solution for this though is like, look, you know what? We get it. There's a lot going on here. We first offered him a loan. We're like, look, we'll just give you a loan to get back on your feet to where you need to go. And if you can't pay us back, then of course, you end up losing the house. We really don't want that. Or we would just do this. Let us buy the entire estate from you, both properties. We will rehab the one that's already vacant. You can take your time up to 6 months to come up and sort through mom and dad's stuff, have an estate sale, do whatever you want with it. But we will, in the process, go through probate because we're talking about almost 1.5 million in property value.
Hmm.
He agreed to 625,000
Okay.
for the entire lump sum, and yeah. So right now we're in the middle of probate, and so we finally secured the property. He boarded up everything, got the neighbor out, and we go to
That's
court
crazy.
on the 11th, next Monday. And
And when did
so
probate was what? When did mom and dad pass? Do you know what year?
yeah, mom passed first. She passed in 89. Dad passed in 92.
Oh, so again, part of probate, you're going to have an appraiser come in and value the properties at,
Back then,
yeah, 90, whatever that was. Okay.
yeah, 92. So the probate value is relatively low
Of
for us.
course.
It's still going to cost us, quite a bit because you're talking about,
Yeah.
two properties.
Well, yeah, well, he's also going to have a tax consequence.
Yep.
Yeah, because again, right, the tax value will be set at 100. He's selling at 600. There's a capital gain there.
Well, no, actually, what happened? So great point. So we actually bought the estate and we bought his beneficial rights in the estate. So we're probating it
Oh,
ourselves. So we cover
okay,
all of
okay.
the taxes. Yep.
Oh, you got that. Okay, 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 okay.
Yeah, he walked. That's straight. however he wants to report those taxes, that those gains are on
That's
him.
on him. That's on him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
My God.
bought beneficial interest.
All right. So you're going to pay the taxes.
Mhm.
I like it. That's very
Yeah,
creative. So
we
I
pay the
guess
taxes
so.
when we sell.
Yeah. So that's amazing. So I guess a couple of questions jump out at me. I know you've been doing creative financing. I know you wrote a book on helping foreclosure, preventing foreclosure, all of that stuff. Um, I am curious. Foreclosures happen all the time. Life events happen, as we've just seen in these three examples.
They do, myself
It just,
included. I've
yeah,
been
of
there.
course, you've been there, right? I am curious. There's a lot of talk about foreclosures going back to kind of the '08 to 2012 insanity. I don't see it, but you
I
do
don't
this for a
either.
living. Okay,
We are at the auctions. They happen weekly. We're at the
right,
auction. I can't tell you how many post moments we see that it's crazy. Granted, we're picking a lot of these off before they actually go to auction, but when we actually
sure,
get there, they're always postponed by the
yeah,
beneficiary.
yeah,
And for example, when we started February, these are just numbers in my local two counties, so Sutter and Yuba County. When we started February, we had 15 that were on the docket. We ended up buying 3 of them. The other 12, only 2 went actual to
mm,
sell. The other ones were all postponed.
yeah. And just so people realize, 15. What was it? Probably like in 2012. Was it what happened on a weekly basis?
Yeah, so, they were going daily at that point.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
was
but
it was insane.
it was
Actually,
hundreds.
oh, yeah. There
It was
was
hundreds.
we definitely were in the hundreds. Right now, we're barely in the teens,
Mhm.
and, and even then, those are getting postponed.
Yeah. And that's something I see the big difference on. This is my opinion, my experience. In the Great Recession, the bank said explicitly, we can't help you until you're 90 days late. So
Yes.
everybody went 90 days late. Today, you go on the bank's website, click a couple of forms, and you're in forbearance for 6 months.
Yep.
I mean, it's vastly different. And these crash bros don't understand just how different the banks are treating foreclosures.
Oh, yeah, it's ridiculous. So here's the crazy thing too. We are getting so when we're talking to these homeowners, some of them are like, I got a packet. They're not even qualifying for a loan mod. They're sending loan mods out. Just sign here. Just sign here, and we'll remodify everything
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah. Put it on a silent second.
Yep.
I mean, it's this is obviously bank lending owner stuff. This is not non-QM, DSCR, none of those loans. But yeah,
Correct.
bank lending, the banks don't want to take mom and dad's house. Unlike the last time where they basically said it 90 days late and maybe we can help you.
Right.
And it was wild.
We just purchased another one in January, and they bought the house in COVID, and they made one payment.
One
And
payment in
one payment
2020.
in 2020, and they wrote it out all the way, and they kept getting mod after mod after mod, forgiving, just things were forgiven. And so finally, when the bank finally had enough, like, okay, it's not, we can't do
Yeah.
this anymore.
Right.
They had a first, they had a second, and they had a third
Oh my
on,
goodness.
which were all they were just the
Mods.
modification.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it had eaten up all of their equity.
of
Fortunately,
course.
they had a very low interest rate, so we turned it into a rental. Like, this is a great
Yeah.
rental.
There you go. Yeah. So again, when you look at the business for 2024, I think the economy is slowing down. Obviously, again, life events happen everywhere, but what do you see coming down the pipeline for your business? More opportunity, less? What's going on?
Um, a lot more opportunity. So with the foreclosures that are happening, because yeah, life does happen to people. I believe that this is my philosophy, right? You know what? We buy problems and we sell solutions.
Yep.
And if we go into it thinking like, you know what, we don't have to buy every house, but if we can help every person that we come in contact with, that's the
There you
goal.
go. There you go.
And it usually just pays itself forward.
Mhm. Yeah. Good karma. I believe in that stuff. Good karma.
Yep.
Ryan, so if somebody wanted to follow you, they wanted to buy your books or books, where should we send them?
Gosh. You can find me on social media under Bootstrap REI on Instagram is probably the best place, Bootstrap
Okay.
REI.
Very cool. And again, if they want to get your books, are they on Amazon or they got to reach out to you directly or how do they do
No,
that?
yeah, they're all on Amazon. Everything's there.
Yeah. Go to Amazon, look up Ryan Nickel. He is amazing. And if you're in the course, Ryan Nickel did create some bonus material around creative financing, which I'm still very thankful for him doing that. Ryan, you're amazing, man. Take care. Keep doing good work.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You got it.